We got Garry Tonon here on the program. He's going to be fighting once again for one championship on March 31st. Garry, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, man. Just finished up some jiu-jitsu. I'm about to spar in about 30 minutes or so. So just a long day, and, we're almost coming to the end with my training, and then I got to go back to go teach my guys in my school.
Yeah, and I know you're a busy guy. We were just talking off air about how you're going to be leaving on Saturday for Tokyo. So how's all that going? I'm sure getting all the last-minute stuff done before you take the big flight.
Yeah, overall, camp went great. Injuries, really, there was one or two like mid-camp, but like towards the end, like right now, I'm feeling great. So, I really don't have much to complain about. I'm pretty happy about my general health. I'm in like no carb phase right now for my weight cut, so I'm a little lethargic between training sessions, but performance doesn't seem to be impacted too much, so that's good. But yeah, all in all, man, I'm feeling great. Really excited to go out to Tokyo on Saturday.
Well, I was going to say the energy levels are pretty high for this interview, so I appreciate that. The carbs don't seem to be affecting that by any means. But I wanted to talk a bit about you signing with One Championship back in 2017, which is looking like a great move now. You know, One making a lot of big moves, signing a lot of free agents. At the time, were there other offers from promotions, like bigger promotions at the time? And why was One sort of the leading candidate for you?
So I actually had only really gotten offers from Asian organizations for whatever reason. Ryzen contacted me. There's a Korean show. I want to say it's called Road FC.
Yeah, you're right.
That contacted me. And just for various reasons, things didn't work out. But I tried to get a hold, I think, of like Bellator at one point to try to. I didn't message anybody, but somebody told me they were going to. It was like a secondhand thing. So I really didn't make a huge effort on my part to really contact them or anybody else from even from the local pro circuits, like even like circuit organizations that operate out of like Atlantic City, like Ring of Combat and stuff. I didn't really talk to. So honestly, I didn't make a huge effort. I wasn't like 100% there yet when it came to switching over to MMA. So what happened is One Championship caught me at a good time because I was like still professional grappling, and they were like, hey, we want to get you in a grappling match against Shinya. So I don't even know if they were 100% sure that I was going to fight yet, because I hadn't said like, yes, I'm definitely fighting at this particular date. I might have mentioned in interviews that I was interested in it, but it's not like I really started training yet for it at that time. So once I went over to Evolve and met with like the guys from One and things, I started to develop a relationship with those guys. It ended up working out really well. Actually, before I took the grappling match, they brought me over for a seminar too. So I got to know them then I got to know them a second time during the grappling match, and I got to be a part of the actual One event and got to see like the other fighters and how everything operated and meet a lot of their staff. So I got to develop a lot of personal relationships with people as opposed to just kind of like messaging somebody over the phone or, having a conversation with somebody. I got to like literally like go to dinner with these guys and like hang out and stuff. So I think that the main thing that was like a deciding factor why I didn't even really try to go shop around and ask other organizations is because it just felt like a good fit from the beginning. Every interaction that I had with them seemed to be good. The interactions I had with other people who were involved with them seemed to be good. Everybody else seemed to be happy. I was asking other people. And it really only seemed like, glowing remarks from the staff and other fighters. So it's kind of rare that you find that in an organization. So I ran into it head first and decided that I had a conversation with Chatri, and he was like, yeah, we'd love to have you, fight with us. And we started talking contracts and stuff, but that was pretty much the deal, man. I guess it felt so comfortable that it didn't really seem necessary to reach out to other organizations. It felt like a good fit.
What do you think of some of the signings that One's made? Eddie Alvarez, Demetrius Johnson, Sage Northcutt, Vitor Belfort. Like, is there one that you're most excited to see compete under the One banner?
That's a good question. As far as which one I want to see most, I'll probably say Demetrius. I'm a big fan of his fights. I think he's a really exciting fighter. But all of those guys are super high level guys, and it's just awesome to have. It's awesome to be a part of One Championship at a time where there's no debate about it. It's so obvious that they're growing and getting bigger and bigger and becoming more and more of a name as far as an organization. I think they were already a huge organization in Asia. I think as far as like competing with Bellator and UFC are concerned, like, I don't even think they touch the Asian market the way that One Championship does. But from the view of, you know, people where I'm from in the United States or even in Europe, I think that it was a little bit less, it had less of a name. And now with the more and more signings of these higher level athletes, I think it's just only going up from here. Ever since I signed, the organization's only got bigger. They put on more shows in more exciting places. Like, they had never put on a show in Japan before, and now they're doing that twice a year. I think there's talks about potentially doing something in the U.S. one day. Obviously, they had that deal with TNT. So, I mean, I think that I'm here at a good time. Let's put it that way. I'm very excited about that.
Let's talk about your opponent here, Anthony Engelen, 8-5 record, the most experienced opponent you fought in terms of MMA fights. How do you feel like you match up against him here?
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup. It's another one of those, I think, like kind of classic striker versus grappler sort of deals. But he has been known to grapple. It's not like he can't work on the ground. It's not like somebody that we've seen never go to the ground in any of his fights. He does have some submission wins. He does take people down. He's got decent timing when it comes to takedowns and things. So I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility that he's able to perform on the ground to some degree. I don't think he'll be on the same level as me, but you never really know. A fight's just different than grappling. And a lot of people from the grappling world, they fail to separate the two. I guess, I don't know, if you've never done grappling with striking before or never done much striking, maybe it's kind of hard to conceptualize. But there's times when you get hit, man, and it's very disorienting. You can get caught in submissions pretty easily after you're disoriented. So, I mean, as long as he knows how to apply something with enough efficiency that he can finish a mildly resisting opponent, I mean, it could be dangerous from both aspects. It really depends on what happens during the fight. But as far as the actual matchup's concerned, I like my chances, of course. I like to be confident in myself. But at the same time, I have a lot of anxiety coming into this fight, as this is probably the first opponent that I had that has, like, true knockout power. Most of my other opponents, any of the finishes that I've ever seen them have were pretty much just TKOs. And this is the first opponent I've had that, in a single punch or kick has ended a fight. So that's definitely something to worry about. It's a perceived threat for me, as a little bit more so, that the fight could literally just be over at any moment. There's a higher percentage chance of that, at least, than any time that I've ever stepped into the cage. And like you said before, he's also just more experienced overall. I think he had kickboxing fights before he had his MMA fights, and even without that, an 8-5 record, not that bad of a record. He's had like 3 fights in most recent months. He's fresh, ready to go. He won 2 out of those 3 fights. So, I mean, I think he's going to be a really game opponent, and I'm happy that One Championship gave me an opportunity to fight somebody that's just another level above, because I want to keep climbing. I want to keep fighting guys that are tougher and tougher, so that, I'm challenging myself for sure. So,
who are some of the training partners right now that have been pushing you through camp?
So I got a lot of different guys that come in, but as far as guys that people have heard of before, Ayman Zahabi comes in like once a week to get some grappling in, and he fights in the 135 division in the UFC, and he's Firas Zahabi's brother. If anybody didn't know that, I mean, hopefully they do, but either way. So he's been doing the whole MMA thing for a really long time, so he's got a lot of experience, able to pass off a good amount of knowledge, and also just as a sparring partner, he knows how to like be safe, but also be very technical and tough training. So it's kind of cool to spar somebody like that, because I get a lot out of it. I get to see some of the stuff that he does, and I also just get to test my skills against somebody who's been doing this a long time and who's about my size, probably pretty close to my opponent's size, to be honest. So that would be like probably one of my favorite training sessions that I get in throughout the week. I only really get to see him once a week, if that, but it's still good training. As far as other guys that people would recognize, Philippe Nover was a previous UFC fighter. I want to say he was a 45er, maybe. He might have fought 55 at one point too, out of Renzo Gracie Academy. He doesn't fight anymore, but he still trains, and he's super tough. Every once in a while, he'll throw me around, and it's a good time. He's good training as well, similar to Ayman. And other than that, it's just various guys in the gym that kind of fight locally. around. There's so many different guys. Like I could name them all right now, but I don't know how many guys.
We'd be here for there's a lot of really high level training partners. Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
So most of my training partners, I would say, are about my level. Nothing like crazy killers. I'm not like flying in crazy guys. I'm not sparring George St. Pierre, despite the fact that he does come help us train and stuff. He usually just gives me tips for like drills and we grapple together. But I'm not like at the point in my career where I'm like trying to fly in like a UFC contender to help me prepare for these fights yet. It's just I'm just not there yet. So most of my training's done with like guys like me. Then the one thing I added this training camp is I started working with the Muay Thai guys downstairs twice a week for their sparring. I'm still doing MMA rules sparring where I can add takedowns in and things like that. But I wanted to get some sparring with those guys since my opponent is a kickboxer. I wanted to get more kicks thrown at me, at my head, at my body, everything, just so I had a little bit better reactions, a little bit better sensitivity in terms of protecting my head, because it is a very dangerous thing and it's a very different thing. I would say as far as the West is concerned, most of the guys are focused on fists as opposed to legs. And if you're not getting that kind of sparring in and then you go into a fight with a kickboxer and all of a sudden there's tons of kicks, it could be disorienting. So that's something that I didn't want to happen. So I added that in a little bit. I have an extra couple training sessions a week with those guys. The head coach for those guys is Joe Samperi, and I work with PJ and also Jamie as well, and those guys are all helping me out. So that's been good too.
Good stable of guys there. You mentioned Ayman Zahabi. I know he's quite the classic video game player. We were talking about Conjure last time. You ever play any games with him? Because I know he's quite the talent at that.
As far as me, and I'm like super just play like old stuff. Like I played a lot of Final Fantasy RPGs back in the day, and like Link, like Zelda games and things. I wasn't like, I don't know. I'm not up with any of the new school games at the moment. So a little bit of Fortnite with Mickey here and there. Learning curve is tough, dude. Like because I really like Fallout because it's like similar. It's like an RPG sort of thing. But it's like every time I pick it up, it takes me an hour and a half to learn how to play it again. So it's tough to get back into it.
No, I agree. Just little bits and pieces. How do you see this fight playing out? I mean, finishes are your thing. We've seen some stand up in some of your fights. We've obviously know the submission game as well. How do you see this fight unfolding?
Yeah, I would just say based on my skill set, the two most obvious ways would be via submission or TKO. I'd probably say that in most of my interviews or most of my fights. But that's just based, that's what I've been doing for most of my career is submission grappling. So as far as the opportunities and the likelihood of where I'm going to have my opponent at any given point in time, that's going to be most likely. Could we see a knockout at some point? Sure. I mean, I'm working on my standing skills as much as possible. I always do believe, though, that like a knockout is not necessarily one of those things that you really like look for per se. It's kind of something that happens because you trained and prepared really well, and you land more strikes than the opponent at the right time. Your timing's good, your power's good and on point, and you hit guys with precision. And that's what I aim to do in my sparring anyway. If I hit him with precision and I have a little extra power, do I think I can knock him out? Absolutely. But it's always far more likely, I think, that I get a TKO or a submission finish.
And we're looking forward to it. It's coming up here. One Championship, March 31st. It's going to be a great card. Garry, thank you so much for the time. I know how busy you are. Just remind people where they can find you on social media, and if you have any sponsors or shout outs, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. Yeah, my social media is super simple. It's pretty much my name for everything. I'm most active on Instagram and Twitter. For whatever reason, I talk to everybody on Twitter. I don't know why. It's kind of like a hobby for me. But either way, those are good ways to reach me. DMs are tough sometimes on Instagram because it just gets flooded with messages. So if you want to like send me something that I'm going to see, probably more likely send it on Twitter. It's probably the easiest way if you really need to get in touch with me. And then other than that, sponsors, Studio 540, Muscle Farm, Naked Chef Meal Prep's been helping me with the whole weight cut situation. Also, my own company, apparel company, Cash Checks Championship. They just released some stuff not too long ago. I think we're going to look to pump some more stuff out soon. So be on the lookout for that. Armbar Soap Company and Chimera Coffee supplies me with the energy that I use for the day because for sure I'm not getting it from carbs now. So caffeine's the only way.